in the world right now. I want you to listen right now to your colleague on the Republican side of the aisle. This is Texas Joe Barton this morning at the hearing in words that will never be forgotten. Joe Barton, here he is.
But I'm ashamed of what happened in the White House yesterday. I think it is a tragedy of the first proportion that a private corporation can be subjected to what I would characterize as a shakedown, in this case a $20 billion shakedown, with the Attorney General of the United States, who is legitimately conducting a criminal investigation and has every right to do so to protect the interests of the American people, participating in what amounts to a $20 billion slush fund. So I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I apologize.
Wow. Well, that was Joe Barton, the congressman from Texas. Later on in the day, hours later, after a lot of heat came down on him, including, to be fair, heat from his fellow Republican, in fact, the leaders of his party, he said this: whether we believe it or not, these were his words at the end of the day. I apologize for using the term shakedown with regard to yesterday's actions at the White House in my opening statement this morning, and I retract my apology to BP. I guess the slush fund still holds. Here's Rush Limbaugh, by the way. They're all singing from the same cards here. Here's Rush Limbaugh on the so-called shakedown, slush fund, whatever terms he's using now. Let's listen.
If Obama's past is prologue, and it is, then this is going to be used as a little miniature slush fund. And that's why he's bragging about it being third-party, independent, so forth and so on.
Congresswoman DeGette, is there a little carrier pigeon that goes around from Mark Levin to Rush Limbaugh to Michelle Bachmann to Joe Barton? Who delivers these little pearls like slush fund, and shakedown? Where do these words come from?
They don't tell me where they got those words, but I'll tell you what, I was sitting right there when Joe Barton said that this morning, and later this afternoon when he came back and tried to retract what he said, and everybody was shocked that he said that. Here's why. Number one, BP is responsible for the largest environmental history in our nation, and it was negligence on every level. They went to the White House voluntarily yesterday. They agreed with the president that they would set up this fund to compensate the victims in this environmental disaster on the Gulf. And now Congressman Barton comes in and apologizes to them, and they all use this word slush fund. I mean, it's real. It just really shows a complete lack of understanding of what happened here, or frankly, the suffering that the people on the Gulf are going through right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word slush in this environment with all that stuff coming up on the shore of the Gulf of Mexico. I don't think that's a well-advised word. Let's take a look, Congresswoman. I want your reaction to this. Let's hear what the CEO, if he had anything to say today. It's not clear he did. Here's Republican Congressman Tom Price putting out this statement. Well, let's go to Tony Hayward. He's the guy we've been watching for days now, the British guy with a very nice accent. Here he is. Let's listen and see if he answers any questions. The chairman of the CEO of BP.
I was not part of that decision-making process. I was not involved in that decision. I can't possibly know the basis on which that decision was taken. I'm afraid I can't recall that, and I don't recall that either, I'm afraid. Again, I was not involved in decision-making. It means I can't answer your question in that form. I can't recall that number, I'm afraid. I can't answer that question because I wasn't there. I'm afraid I can't recall. I'm afraid I can't recall that either. That was a decision I was not party to. I don't know. I'm afraid I don't know that either.
I'm thinking of Henry Higgins and My Fair Lady. They don't care what they say as long as they say it properly. I mean, I don't know what he said there properly. Anything?
Chris, what's really shocking is last week the chairman sent him a very detailed memo about what we all intended to ask Mr. Hayward about, and yet he showed up today. All he said is he felt bad, but then he disclaimed any knowledge for anything that happened. He said he brought a technical expert, but when I asked him to bring his technical expert up to the table and help answer questions, he declined to do that. So it was really disappointing testimony, and it's still going on. I'm getting ready to go back myself and question him some more. At least we'll have this on the record. And I will also say, this committee, the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee, is not going to just stop today. We're going to keep bringing the BP employees and their subcontractors in until we get answers to how this terrible tragedy occurred and how we can prevent it in the future, and how we're going to compensate the victims quickly.
Well, you know, when a plane crashes or we have some other tragedy, we have a little black box we try to find in the water or somewhere, and we go through it and we try to figure out, looking at all the technology, and learn what happened. Do you believe we're going to find out the management decisions that led to this catastrophe? Will we find them out?
Chris, we already have a lot of the information in internal BP documents and Halliburton documents and Schlumberger and all of the other people working on this rig. We already have a lot of the evidence, and what it shows is that every step of the way, 5 different ways that they could have helped prevent this explosion. They took shortcuts, they didn't do what the industry best practices were, and they tried to save money. In the cementing, for example, they sent away the subcontractors who were going to do a key test in order to save about $116,000. So we do have a lot of that information now, and we're just going to keep probing until we get all of it.
Penny wise and pound foolish, to use a British expression. Thank you very much.
In an inconceivable way. Thank you,
Okay,
Chris.
thank you very much, Congresswoman Diana DeGette of Colorado. Bernard Charbonnet has, of course, been on the program before. He's the former